Hello and welcome to Lightways at Life Astrologer with me, Anna Isabel, and my guest today is Jean-Marc Pierson. Hello.
Hello, Anna. Hello, everyone.
And thank you so much for agreeing to join me to talk about another of Liz Greene's wonderful books. So this is a kind of series that I've been doing where I've been discussing Liz Greene's books with different astrologers. And today we are talking about The Art of Stealing Fire, which is really all about Uranus in the chart. In fact, the second part of the title is Uranus in the horoscope. And so I wonder, Jean-Marc, are you familiar with Liz Greene's work, or was this new to you?
I am familiar with Liz Greene's work. I found out about the seminars of psychological astrology in the 90s when I was studying astrology, and when I found out that there was such a thing as psychological astrology, I found out these seminars with Howard Sasportas. I have read her book about Saturn again and again because it's so dense and so packed, and this one is of the same caliber as Saturn. It's
Yeah.
when I was reading it, I remember the comment. A funny anecdote, someone saying, how come that when we were young, we were able to read books from cover to cover in 2 or 3 hours, and then now we just can't read 3 pages. And it's not because our brain is melting, that's because we appreciate the depth of what are in these pages and make such connections that 2 or 3 pages unfold and the whole world unfolds, and I had this feeling permanently. I couldn't just move forward. Every paragraph stopped me to think, and
Yeah, exactly. And I share your love of Liz Greene's work because, and funnily enough, the first book of hers that I read was A New Look at an Old Devil, which is the book on Saturn that you're talking about. So that was the first book. But all of them, I absolutely loved the one on Neptune as well.
yes.
And and today, of course, we are here talking about this one, which is to do with Uranus. And you know, page one,
Yeah.
and it, it's. I think what I love about this book is that I feel that there are a lot of things that have become sloppy in astrology, and in people, and those things kind of irritate me. So it seems that Liz in this book has the same bugbear as I have, because it is to do with Uranus, and it is this idea that Uranus is about individuality, and it
Mhm.
irritates me when I hear people say that, because it is not. And here is the reason why. She explains it very, very clearly. She says, Uranus is an outer planet because outer planets reflect movements within the collective psyche in which we all share. Uranus is not concerned with individual development. It may even prove inimical to individual values and individual emotional needs. We should realize the collective nature of Uranus by the simple fact that this planet is the co-ruler of the sign opposite the one which the sun rules, in company with Saturn. It governs Aquarius, which is opposite Leo. And that is the heart of Uranus for me. It is completely about the collective and collective trends and progress. And she goes on, this alone informs us that it symbolizes the antithesis of individual expression, which is solar, because the individual is submerged in the group. And I think that we need to be very clear on this Uranian principle. What did you feel?
Oh, but I was like you. Page 1, I read it, And then I came back to it, and then I started taking notes, and it was the beginning of not me being able to go further into the book because it's so intense. And yes, and it made me think, especially because later she says, but the fire that is stolen by Prometheus, which is the book is about Uranus as the myth of Prometheus to a wide extent, and the fire Prometheus steals is the solar fire of individuality. So there is this apparent contradiction that we have to become clear in our understanding that actually Uranus itself is not individual and it bombs individuality onto us collectively, which is something a bit bizarre. I loved yeah, you were about to say something.
No, you loved.
I loved the example of the woman who could not say I, and she was always saying we. And I loved this example with because it was my ex. And I take advantage to take about my ex, but she doesn't understand English and nobody knows her in the English world. But she had a Sun-Uranus conjunction.
Yeah.
And so I had a number of examples illustrated and well explained in the book. And she was always saying we, like the example that Liz Greene gives in the book. We. And we do this and we do that, and we are weird together, but there is no I.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because Uranus just gets lost in this vision for the collective. And I think it's the Uranian energy as expressed in individuals sees individuals who are not concerned with the detail of I. They are concerned with the collective. And everything is so important because it's not for one individual. It is the collective.
Yeah, us.
Need to understand that because Uranus was not a good guy. He was he was overthrown by Saturn for a reason. And the
Yeah.
reason he was a tyrant. And that idealism that Uranus has, that vision of what the ideal should be, when it's rejected, it's or when reality doesn't measure up to the ideal, he's not shy to show what he thinks, and everything gets uprooted regardless of feelings. So yeah, I'm just, I don't like these children that have been produced, so I'm just going to put them back in the bowels of the earth. Never mind what Gaia might be thinking. How's that for you ladies? Doesn't like a child and goes back into the womb. Yeah, she's going to really like that idea, isn't she? There's just no thought for that. There's, I think, in order for the individual to be recognized, there has to be empathy. And this is not part of the Uranian principle.
Yeah, not really. Empathy is much more on the side of the moon, and precisely Uranus comes and disrupts the world of the moon, precisely thinking, I've got a better idea. That's not perfect enough in here. And then there is no precautions, no being careful with hurting. Or it's just
Yeah.
being, and she mentioned that actually, for example, science can become a religion and it can become completely fanatical. I loved also when Liz Greene says, oh, the guillotine in the French Revolution may have cut a number of heads, but the goddess reason even more. And
Yeah, absolutely. She's got it spot on. It's this I feel in a sense that what she says about science becoming a kind of religion is prescient, because never it was already beginning to be so evident in that time, but it is never more evident than now. And yes, you're right, the guillotine, reason, yeah, gone. Because it is this blindness. This is the planet that we associate with revolutions, and revolutions could be blind to anything but the vision of the ideal. And it really is throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not measured in any sense. It's right, that's it. Erase everything. And we see that in history, the Cultural Revolution. And
yeah, everywhere. I'm thinking of a movie by, I think it's Ken Loach, The Wind in the Barley or something. I'm not sure of the title exactly. It's about the Irish fighting the English, and you see actually the process with those who are moderate and those who want to keep fighting. And there is this absolute drama where two friends, they were friends as children, and one decides that the other one has to be shot as a traitor, because the idea and the revolution takes its own momentum and becomes completely inhuman.
Yeah, and I think that's when we think about the French Revolution, we think
As
about
well.
that, the Bolshevik Revolution also.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy.
it's where this is where Uranus becomes inhuman. Maybe it might be nice if you could remind people, or for those who are unfamiliar with the myth of Prometheus, maybe you could tell the story.
I'm not sure I remember all the details, but Prometheus basically he was on the side of Zeus when Zeus overthrew Saturn. So he was already a betrayer as a Titan, because he was Saturn's brother, and so he was in good terms with Zeus and all the Olympians. And at the same time, he was not one of them. And at some point, there are various versions, and in one version, he creates humanity. He makes them of clay, exactly like the God in the Bible. He makes some how do you say, sculpture, some modeling, and then it's the goddess Athene that comes and breathes life into them, and then he's in charge of these little people, and very concerned by them, and he's already thinking what they could become, because it's always the question of foresight. Prometheus means foresight. He sees what can happen, and so he managed to steal the fire of the gods, because Zeus just don't want them to have that. Too dangerous, too crazy. No, no, no. Zeus probably knows what could happen, and Prometheus steals the fire from the god. He hides some sparks in not in a bamboo, in a fennel branch or something, and gets out of Olympus and gives fire to the people who were cold because they didn't have fire, and then they can cook and they can make all kinds of inventions, and then things becomes crazy at the level of humanity, and Zeus is very annoyed. And so Prometheus is condemned to be chained to a rock for eternity, but it won't last for eternity. And every day an eagle comes, and the eagle is Jupiter. It's a symbol, it's a bird of Jupiter, and the eagle comes and eats its liver. It's something horrible like Tantalus or Sisyphus. Every day the eagle eats its liver. It's horribly painful, and then the liver grow again, and the eagle comes back and he suffers terribly. Until I believe Chiron offers to take his place.
There is a deal that's brokered
Yeah.
in order to allow Chiron to die.
Mm.
And it's Heracles who comes along and brokers that deal with Zeus. Why do you feel that this myth is an appropriate illustration of Uranian energy? What are your thoughts?
But my first thought was that I believe in synchronicity. I believe that planets receive their name for a reason, which is comes from the collective psyche or the spiritual world. And I'm thinking, all right, it has been called Uranus. It should be Uranus, the central. So I'm. But mythology is so much bigger. But there are so many characters in mythology, and they are all meaningful, and we don't have enough planets, so several myths must fit in. And this one happens to fit in. Why? Why Prometheus follows Uranus? I'm not sure really, because he's a Titan. And
See,
he's a Titan, so he's like Saturn. He's of Saturn generation. And Liz Greene says he connects with the Earth as a Titan. Is not like the Olympians. The Olympians, well, on top of a mountain, you're close to heaven. But the Olympians are the sons and daughters of the Titans anyway. So all this is a little bit confusing.
but it is an act of rebellion.
Yeah.
What he does is an act of rebellion.
Yes, definitely.
Zeus has forbidden him to do this, and he goes against that, which I think is very Uranian. It's a revolution, and it's a revolution on another level because it changes humanity. If we think about that, what that solar energy is, it's think about fire and what it represents, the soul, the Holy Spirit, all of these different images that we have between fire and spirit, the soul, divinity. So he takes something of the gods and gives humanity, which is precisely why Zeus said no. Because, but he had a vision. He had the vision for what might be possible. He could see the glorious evolution of his creation. And so he rebelled. That's an act of rebellion. And then he creates another kind of revolution because he revolutionizes, I guess, the nature of humanity. You could say perhaps this, they wake up, there's consciousness, something that maybe they didn't have before. We could interpret it in any number of ways. And he believes in his creation, and that's why it's that vision. I think that's what makes this so Uranian.
Well, yeah, I agree that it's completely Uranian in the sense that it's how we understand the planet. I don't see the connection with the god Uranus and the myth of Uranus.
Yes.
That's where I say, how come Prometheus follows Uranus? Uranus is not a rebel. He's the creator. He's the one who comes with the ideas and then he doesn't like the result, but he doesn't rebel.
No, but you could argue that there is something intrinsically Uranian that is inimical to nature.
Yes.
Because the very act of getting his children and pushing them back to Gaia is, I think, a rejection of nature. Nature isn't an ideal thing. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's messy. And and that's what it is to be on this planet. It's messy, you know, we're all busy, you know, making mud pies and getting mucky, and also enjoying the glorious possibilities of life. That's nature. And this is where Uranus comes in. He's not very keen on that.
Yeah,
He
so
loves everything to be the ideal.
he rebels in some way, actually.
Yeah.
He,
And if you think about the what we conceive as progress, progress is always inimical to nature in one way or another.
Mhm.
You know, we think about the fact that they seem to be, the authorities seem to be busy with geoengineering. They're putting stuff into our atmosphere to seed clouds. If you look at what's in these cloud seeding things, there are inorganic compounds that we're never going to be able to get rid of.
Yeah.
This is
Once again.
Uranus in Taurus messing with nature on a big scale.
Mhm.
So there's something here about this ideal versus reality, and nature never really does measure up to reality. People think of nature as being the Disney film, but actually it's also the wildlife film where the lion takes down the baby elephant. It's
Yeah,
that.
no, nature. Actually, we we have created culture since prehistoric times precisely because nature is a bit too harsh. You know, we want better, and so we created, you know, language. We created or found out about agriculture, and everything is rebellion against nature because we want a better life. Uh,
Exactly.
we don't
So, yeah,
necessarily get a better life because we're
yeah.
going too far.
And the very notion of what civilization is, and when with the word civilization, what do we throw in? Sophistication.
Yes.
All those two words have no room for nature in them, because if you think about the how the rural side of life, and how people who are closer to nature are referred to, they're seen as unsophisticated, you know, rather derogatory terms like wooden tops and all of that. And I see this in all sorts of different countries where those who are closer to nature are actually looked down on. Of course, the very reason why the so many Aboriginal cultures have been obliterated, because they were regarded as being primitive.
Yes.
So
And now the word is not politically correct and we can't use it at all when it means first. Time it's not possible to escape nature. We are forced to work with it, otherwise we are not incarnated. So it's something about the symbol of the snake biting its own head. Uh, I it's I think we could even think of Prometheus, Uranus, of this energy as part of nature itself. It's nature rebelling against itself, as if it was an instinct to rebel against instinct. And you get the snake biting its tail and sending its own poison to itself to get somewhere else.
I like that. I like that. There is that sense of impatience that is there within us all, you know, that wanting to move forward. And for those who are Uranian, and I'm quoting from Liz's book, the vision of the future must happen now.
Yes.
Um, and then she goes on to say, change for change's sake may not open any creative doors. And that's true. But it's just that impatience for the improvement. And I think, you know, there is another side to the myth, is that Zeus also punishes humanity by sending Pandora's box.
Yes.
And it is our curiosity that opens that box. And how many things have we, and so all the different woes of humanity, you know, that war and famine and everything come out of that box. How often in history has our supposed vision for the future and progress led to catastrophe because we didn't have the wisdom to understand what we were actually doing?
Yes, all the time.
And boy, you know, it just gets better and better because we've got more and more toys, more and more power, and it seems to me less and less wisdom.
And it's even seems fatal sometimes. Uh, I was surprised. I recently read a book about Babylonians civilization and the roots of astrology. Uh, Michael Bagent, I think, if I remember that. And it was very interesting. I learned something which goes in this way. We find out some new technology, we improve, and then we die from it. Because the Babylonians, they had all these channels for water. They had systems of irrigations that were absolutely fantastic and allowed their civilization to prosper. And at the same time, because they were taking a lot of water from the rivers into the fields, little by little, there was the salt made the earth sterile. And nowadays it's a desert. So their technical innovation also brought the end of the civilization and the death of the earth and of their.
We just don't know where to stop.
We
I
don't
think
know, and can we even stop?
you know, we're thinking about the French Revolution.
You know, that
Get rid of the king, fine, but it didn't stop there, did it?
yeah, and even getting rid of the king in the beginning, they didn't want to get rid of the king. The king had to cope with the parliament and had much less power, but they didn't want to kill him straight away. And then it went to cutting his head and his family's head, and then the rulers of the parliament, the strong men of one day had their heads cut off by the next generation. It was a bloodbath. That's why I'm not a revolutionary politically. I was when I was young, like everyone, and maybe, but it goes to such horrors.
It does. And I think in our time, we're looking at Uranus, and there's been so much talk about Uranus because of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we have
Yes.
just in Taurus. And I think I'm looking at the world, and it seems that, and Liz makes this point that there's something about the Uranian energy that's more about a reaction than
Yes.
because revolution is a reaction to something.
Yes,
And
you need the something to break.
yeah, and so we have, on the one hand, as Uranus has been in Taurus, the technocrats and those who are dyed-in-the-wool aficionados of progress attacking everything that society has ever known through technology and through a cultural revolution of sorts, which seeks to even redefine the biology of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that on the one hand, and then we have another revolution going on in reaction to that one that says, no, do you know what? Nature is a good thing. And however much you might want to sell us the idea that there's got to be something better than nature, no, we're going to do this, thank you very much. And I think that there is a resurgence currently in herbalism, as people are becoming very concerned with the way that modern medicine's going. So
Right.
there's these two movements, And the one thing they both seem to agree on is something needs to change.
Yes.
Something needs to change, because those who are looking at what's being done to nature are saying, do you know, a world that has allowed this much to happen, that is inimical to nature, has got to change.
Yeah, well, I agree.
And the others are going, oh no, AI, this is, this is the best thing. And actually, hey, who needs humans after all? We should all just have chips in us, etc. So these are very extreme points. And I think that if we're trying to understand Uranus, we have to understand that it is about extremes.
Yes. It's Liz Greene talks about that again, but it goes to the extreme, because once the movement goes, where does it go? We want to go. We want to see what will happen, and if we find out about a new power, the power of science, the power of technology, there are people who say, "Wow, look at what we can doing. What we can do with that. We've got to do it." And there will be a number of people who say, "No, no, I'm careful, don't go." There will be some people who say, "We've got to go. We want to see."
And
And
that back to the Pandora's box,
yeah,
and because it is curiosity that drives Pandora to open it.
yes,
And
and a bit of stupidity as well.
but it's certainly curiosity. But then it's the curiosity that says, well, what would happen if we started to play with genetics? What could we create? What could we do if we started to play with genes and change gene sequences? And it's that curiosity, which basically means playing God. And if we come back to the fire,
Yes,
something from the gods,
yes, the
and
knowledge, the power of engineering life. Yes.
exactly, maybe Zeus wasn't the bad guy here.
But the story is so similar to Adam and Eve.
Yes.
And I believe that the story doesn't tell everything. When we come to Adam and Eve, the forbidden fruit could be Uranus. And personally, my one take I like about Adam and Eve is that God wanted them to disobey. He wanted them to rebel and says, "All right, let's eat it. God doesn't want, but we're gonna do it anyway." And God wanted it secretly. I think.
Do you think that's an interesting thing? If we take that knowledge as that tree as being the tree of knowledge,
Of good and evil.
but it's knowledge, and how can, again, it's knowledge without wisdom. They eat the apple, and it's knowledge without wisdom, and therein lies the end of paradise, because
Yeah.
they haven't grown enough. They're not. So it's these are the threads, and I think this is why this book is so rich, that you said that you were having to stop and make notes at every paragraph.
Yeah, because I don't know, we have been talking for more than half an hour already, and we are already in the first pages.
Exactly. And that's the denseness of it.
Yeah, because it doesn't stop.
No, it isn't. She is so brilliant at dissecting all the different aspects of this energy. So this is, as always, with anything that Liz Greene writes, it's steeped in imagery, and so comes from so many different angles. It's always a very rich experience reading her books, which is why I'm so delighted that I have the opportunity to discuss them. It's a joy.
Mm. Yeah, she's a historian as well as a depth psychologist. She has she has PhDs on two sides, I believe. And yeah, so sometimes just one sentence, and at some point reading her, I understood better what these archetypes or archetypal energies are, like Uranus, because we constantly switch from talking about them as if they were people. Like Uranus is impatient and he wants his ideal visions now. Uh, and some people who are strongly inhibited by the Uranian energy will be like that. But Uranus itself as an energy, it's part of the unconscious collective. You can't really say that it wants something or that it's impatient, but it's just a raw energy which is not supposed to exist on its own. It's supposed
No,
to be balanced or to be contained, to take part of the combination of the various energies. And when we have too much of Uranus energy in someone or in the people, that's when we see this impatience and this fanatical attitude. But it's just a raw and energy, I think. Is it conscious? Do you think it's conscious?
that's a good question because you can argue it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that I'm going to kind of skirt around it to answer it. What I feel is that obviously every archetype exists within every one of us to a greater or lesser extent. And so we could say that instead of using the word archetype, we could talk about an aspect of human nature.
Yes.
An aspect of human nature, the impatience, the desire to change things that we don't like or aren't happy with. Because what I feel the Uranian impulse is freedom. Freedom from the restrictions that nature places upon us.
Yes.
Why is it that we are currently in a situation, for better or for worse, where we have incubators for fetuses so that we no longer need women to carry babies? This is where we are. This is where Elon Musk is at the minute, talking this. And I might shrink back with horror, and I do. And many of us are thinking, excuse me, a womb is more than just a factory for a fetus. It is a primal bonding and etc. But how is this being sold to the public? To liberate women from the tyranny of pregnancy. So this is the whole thing about the pill was sold to women in that way. Abortions are sold to women in that way. But this seems to be rather extreme. But
Yes.
it's the notion of liberation. This is it's thinking about the price that is going to be paid and what it actually means, because ultimately many would argue this is a dehumanization process.
Yes, definitely.
So you know, for those who know Star Trek, they will remember seeing those incubators for the Borg children. Is this what is this where we're heading? To liberate humanity from its intrinsic humanity and turn it into something else. So to what extent do we want to be liberated from nature? Ultimately, it comes back to that. The
Yes.
Uranian principle of progress, because we have a vision that's so much better than God's, than what was there before. So that might be a vision that's political, because we want to liberate everybody from the tyranny that is the perceived tyranny of the time, but what are we creating in its place? And that's always the question when it comes to Uranus, isn't it?
Yes, but
I don't know if I've answered your question.
yeah, but I was thinking as you were talking that actually rebelling against this dehumanization is also Uranian.
And that's what I was saying that is happening. I see at the moment, because on that one hand you have this extreme attack on nature,
Yeah, and the
and
return.
then you have the response, which is almost, I think it's coming to, in some cases, the complete rejection of technology and science. So it's there's two revolutions that are going on simultaneously. The one thing they agree on is they don't like the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah,
and that's so Uranian. You know, we just don't like the status quo now. That's so that's, I think, a very interesting state of affairs.
I found out about the movement called the Extinction Rebellion when Uranus moved into Taurus. And I didn't know them, and I come across a demonstration in London, and they all had these banners with bulls' heads.
Yes, yes. This is the signature of our time, but it certainly feels like there are profound Uranian energies at work. So what we're seeing is the Uranian impulse to really separate from what is, as in nature, in Taurus has been absolutely magnified to the point where we are seeing the extremes we're seeing, and that in itself is now making people reassess their relationship with nature and thinking, you know, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
We have the potential to destroy our world. This isn't good.
Yeah, we have enough progress now.
Yeah, we've gone far enough now. Thank you very much. But as you said, Uranus doesn't know where to stop, or doesn't stop, doesn't know how to stop.
It doesn't stop, but consciousness. Hopefully, with consciousness, we can stop what we're doing. That's
So that's nice, because that's the bit of fire that's the other side of the fire brought down by Prometheus. We recognize that we are more than, and let's use that for something better, in a different way that's much more sensitive and caring and compassionate. Yeah, I think that's definitely there too. The two sides of Uranus.
yes, awakening. It's a sorcerer apprentice story, the story of Uranus.
I like that.
And Liz Greene says that as well, that Uranus is a planet of magic. And magic, but even science is magic according to the definition. That means it's about understanding the structure of the cosmos, of the laws of the universe, whatever, the laws of nature, and starting doing something with it. So because nature does nature, but then we come and say, oh, but with this we can handle this and make things different, and that's Uranian. But there was a time where we learned language. Before we were just making sounds like animals, and maybe it evolved and we invented language, and most probably at the time the words were considered as magic. So the power of evocation, or when we started to write, the hieroglyphs had magic power. Every time we handle something new it was something associated with magic, and it gives power. And I'm quite happy that we learn to speak and to and to count and to evolve our civilization.
Indeed. Yeah.
But yeah, it's worrying where it goes, definitely.
Well, that's Uranus, isn't it? We
It was
can't.
that.
It's not a horse that you can easily ride. This is the richness. This is actually what we're describing here in our conversation is the very reason why I love this book so much. Because I feel that taking that myth of Prometheus and working with it to explore Uranian energy is absolutely genius, because it's so illustrative of what we're dealing with. So I think it's exactly at the heart of that understanding. That myth is perfect, absolutely perfect for it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I have the same impression. It's deeply, deeply philosophical, and you can think of what's going on now in our society, or what has been going on throughout history, and what is going on in our own lives. And this problem of nature and culture and progress and keeping things as they were before, and what is good and what can we do with the power, what is wise, what is not, and you can go everywhere. And at every page, we can go everywhere.
Exactly. And where I was talking about the aim being to liberate, but I think also, as human beings, we can be a little bit lazy and we can get stuck in a rut.
Yes.
And we need that occasional shake-up in order to assess and to grow, in terms of our humanity and our spirituality. And I think Uranus, another way I think of Uranus is the agent provocateur, who comes along and throws something into the mix that says, right, here you are then. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And that's why we have this counter reaction to the extreme, because it's calling us to actually, I think what it's asking us to do is to say, well, who are you? Who are you, human beings? Are you more are you more than just people who are programmable through media, through advertising, through education? Where do we go beyond indoctrination? So are you just people who behaviorists can get together and say, okay, we're going to change the way that people behave? Is that all we are? Are we just going to be trained and programmed, or is there more to us? And I think that's a question that many of us are asking at the moment. And I think it kind of needed to happen, because where do we go beyond religion? We are in a culture that is pretty close to being atheist. How's that working out for us? Is that what we are? Is that what we really believe? And when we are faced with AI virtually replacing us, who are we? And I think that is so Uranian, that role of the agent provocateur, going, okay, so who are you really?
Yeah, react.
Yeah,
I give you the matrix, now get out of it.
yeah. Yeah, perfect. Well, there you are, folks. As Jean-Marc has said, I've given you the matrix. Now get out of it. So I will leave all of you to ponder what you're going to do through the different Uranian phases in your life. The book that we are discussing that may well help you make your way through that is called The Art of Stealing Fire, Uranus in the Horoscope by Liz Greene. Here it is, and I'll be putting a link to it in the description box. Jean-Marc, if people want to find you and learn more about your work, how do they do that?
Well, they can look at the jeanmarcpierson.com. You can put the link to my website if you want.
Yeah,
Just my name. If they're watching on YouTube, I can make a comment under the video, and they see they can find my own YouTube channel, which I've decided to revive
excellent.
recently. So
Good.
otherwise, yes, jeanmarcpierson.com or Magical Doors, the book I've written.
In fact, yes, I will also put a link to your book on there as well. Remind everyone of the title of your book.
Magical Doors, the Symbols of Astrology.
Perfect, because I will also put a link to the interview we did about that in the description.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you. And thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be looking at intuitive astrological herbals. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.